Over 89,000 Americans are waiting for a new chance at life. They are your moms and dads, your grandmas and grandpas, your favorite aunts and uncles, and even your children. And they are all waiting for the same thing, the chance to receive the gift of life through organ donation. That's the topic of this edition of Healthy Living, so stay with us. How do you feel about organ donation? Some say, I've already made the decision to be an organ donor. Some say, I've thought about it. Some say, no way. Some say, I've never thought about it at all. But maybe the reason that we don't is because we don't really understand what organ donation is all about and how important it is to saving people's lives. Here to help me discuss that and help me to understand what organ donation is all about, I have two guests. I have Vanessa Dallas, who is an RN and the Hospital Development Coordinator for the Kentucky Organ Affiliates.
Yes,
welcome.
Thank you.
And I also have Charlotte Wong, and you are the Education Coordinator for the Kentucky Organ Affiliates from Lexington.
Yes.
You made a trip down here. Thank you so much.
Thank you for having me.
Well, I want to start out talking about CODA, which is what I looked up in the phone book to get in touch with you, Vanessa, and try to get to do this show. What is CODA?
Well, the Kentucky Organ Donor Affiliates is the state organization that assists in the transplant process on the donation end. We are here to offer families the option of donation and then provide those donor organs to waiting recipients.
And your job, Charlotte, is to educate people about that process.
My job is never to be in the office. It's always to be at a high school or a college, a civic organization, anybody that I can, to share information. It is never to pressure anyone. You have to sign a donor card. No. But everyone needs to understand that this is an option that someday many of us will face having to make. So the most important thing to do is to have opportunities to discuss, to ask questions, and to get answers that you then can make an educated, informed decision about.
Like you would do about anything else.
Absolutely.
Absolutely.
Yeah, I encourage people to make the decision before they have to make the
That's
decision,
right.
so they've had an opportunity to talk about it.
I
Absolutely.
think that's really what we're really going to be talking about in this show, how important that is.
Absolutely.
Kentucky has something new. It's a registry. Can you tell me a little bit about that, Charlotte or Vanessa, and how important
We're
it is?
really very excited about this. You know, Kentucky was the first state years ago to use our driver's license as an indicator that you wanted to be an organ donor. Right now, we are the 30th state in the United States to adopt a statewide registry. And what this is will be a format, a way that a person can give their individual decision about being an organ donor. They can go online. There will be a website that will be up and running, they're saying by November 1st. And you will be able to give first-person consent about what you want to do for organ donation, so that within the next couple years, it will not place the importance of signing a driver's license where you can go and fill out, maybe we'll have a registry day on college campuses. That way, it is a way of expressing, this is what I want done.
What if I change my mind?
Then there will be a link that you can go in and you can make that change, but it's something that you yourself can do, and that takes that burden off of a husband or a parent or for a child to have to answer that question for their parent. It takes that burden entirely off of that family.
Yeah. We always encourage families to have this discussion so everyone is aware of what your decision is about organ donation. But this is one way that if they haven't had the opportunity to share that information, we'll have access to that registry and we can share that information with them at the time.
Well, some of the education that you would be talking to people about would maybe be the difference in organ donation and tissue donation. They're different. And can you, as a registered nurse, kind of explain that?
Certainly. The types of donation that are possible depend on the circumstances that happen at the time of death. there is a unique situation in which someone can give the gift of life to someone else through organ donation. The organs that were like the heart that can be given to someone in need of a heart transplant, the liver, lungs, kidneys, pancreas, small intestine. There are many organs that are available to save someone's life. That stems from a unique situation that is called brain death, or even the possibility of donation after cardiac death. It is a unique situation and doesn't happen very frequently, which is why we need more people to indicate their wish to be an organ donor, because it's such a unique situation in which organs can be transplanted.
You mean in the sense that there's a time limit, or that
Well,
there's
it's
only a
ju-
certain amount of time that those particular organs maybe can be...
The initial situation is just the circumstances that surround that death, whether it's a head injury or things like that. It's a particular circumstance and unique one
So it's
that
very
offers
particular.
absolutely
Yes.
that offers the opportunity for organ donation. Tissue donation is more prevalent because it stems from what everyone thinks of as the type of death. It's a cardiac standstill. The heart stops beating. Everyone's normal information that they have when death occurs. That's a situation where someone can offer the gift of life through tissue transplants. Those are things like heart valves, bone that can help up to about 50 people from a single person choosing to give the gift of bone donation. It can be corneas that can give the sight to someone else. So that situation happens a bit more frequently, so we're able to offer tissue donation to more. But someone can be an organ and tissue donor at the same time.
So one donor,
Mm-hmm.
if I were to die,
Mm-hmm.
and I have signed the back of my driver's license, and I have made my wishes known to my family,
Yes.
I could help 50 people.
Absolutely. You can save up to 8 lives through organ transplant, and 50 or more people with the gift of sight or the gift of bone donation or a vascular donation, things like that, heart valve transplant. Things like that can help someone else, more
What
than
about
50
skin?
people. Skin donation is another thing that helps severe burn patients. So a lot of good can come from one person making that decision.
Great. We talked how important it is again about spreading the word. Talk a little bit more about what you do, Charlotte, to spread the word. When I called you, you were very receptive to doing this show.
Certainly.
To get the word out. How important is it to spread the word?
It's very important, and one of the things that I focus on a lot is in school systems. So many of the school systems right now throughout the state of Kentucky are doing open response writing projects. They're required to do portfolio writing pieces or writing responses to gauge educational levels that are achieved. Many teachers across the state will invite me to come and talk about the myths and misunderstandings about organ donation, and then as a follow-up assignment have their students write a letter to a family member or write a piece about what they think about organ donation. It gives, number one, that opportunity for students to learn and ask questions about what happens in organ donation. You know, we see a lot of things on TV, on the big silver screen. Movies bring a lot of falsehoods into people's lives. So they think they know, after they've watched a specific television show, how organ donation works, but really they don't. And so they make a decision, or they understand a falsehood. So my job is to go out into the classrooms, to go on college campuses, to speak at civic organizations and share facts and statistics, to answer questions, and just to get families to talk about organ donation.
Well, you are from Lexington, so I know that you do a lot of that there. Do you locally here in our area? Do you do that, or does someone else?
We have 3 education staff members that cover the entire state of Kentucky. And technically I've crossed the line coming down, but I did manage, I'm going to manage to get to the Quilt Museum so I can
Exactly.
justify crossing that line.
That's right.
But yes, we do have education people who are available Interested educators could call 1-800-525-3456.
And that's the CODA.
That's our
That's
CODA
our main number.
and ask for an education person, and we will come into the class. We come to a school all day. And many times we draw on another organization that's called Second Chance. And that's our group of volunteers, recipients, and family members who travel with us and share their part of the story when we do a public presentation.
So donor families go with you.
Yes, ma'am.
Certainly.
To do that.
Yes.
And here locally, that's another part of my job besides the very clinical aspect of my job, is I also get to be a public educator. So we attend health fairs, health events around the area. We work very closely with our local hospitals and facilities to provide education not only to their staff, but they feel it's important at our local hospitals to provide education to our community and provide opportunities for us to do that here locally.
You know, another opportunity and avenue that we are very, very involved with is walks of faith. November is recognized nationally as the month that we take the opportunity to thank a donor family for making that choice to share life with others. And so typically the second weekend in November is called National Donor Sabbath Weekend. And we hold a ceremony in Frankfurt, and we have a ceremony where we ask people to just say thank you. We ask churches, regardless of denomination, to say a prayer of thanks for donor families who shared life, to say a prayer for those people on the waiting list, and to say a prayer for those families who had a member on the waiting list who did not live long enough because that organ didn't become available. So we also are available to speak to churches, to Sunday school classes, to women's guilds, any opportunity we can to talk about this gift that's based on sharing.
So it's the 1-800, give the 1-800 number again.
It's 1-800-525-3456.
I like the last part, I can remember that. 3456.
Exactly.
And of course, Vanessa can be reached here locally.
Here
What's your number locally?
Locally, it's here in Paducah, 443-0658.
So any school organization, church, women's group who is interested in having an educator come and speak to you, please call those numbers and let them have the opportunity to share this information with you. In my intro, I said, you know, that lots of people, some people say, I've already made the decision. I've made the decision. Some people say, you know, I'm not doing it. Maybe they're scared. Maybe they don't understand. And you brought to my attention, Charlotte, before we began, some people, most people, don't think about it at all until the time arrives. And so I want to ask you, you were a nurse, and I don't know what you did before you did this for CODA, but what brought you to this point in your life to want to be a part of educating people about organ donation? Did you think about it?
I
What
did
made you
think about it. I've been the family member. So I have been on the other side of this fence, being the family member that donation was discussed regarding a family member of mine. And it made such an impact on me having that discussion as a senior in high school with my family. My dad, it was his next oldest sister that passed away, and my dad came to me immediately and said, if this is ever the situation that I'm in, I certainly want to give anything I can to help someone else. So it was a very quick decision for him. I know his wishes. And then after becoming a nurse, being on that side of it, taking care of families and patients in the local critical care units that were faced with this decision themselves. So about every side of that fence you can be on, I've been impacted by personally, and thought it was such an important thing to share with other people and an important part of my life that it was just a great opportunity for me to bring that to this side of the donation process.
Well, I think that's so important, because I say a lot of times that people try to tell you how to feel in a certain situation. I understand how you feel. And I really don't believe that. I believe that people only understand when they have been where you are.
Right.
And so for you to be able to say, I have been in your shoes, and for you to see someone who has to make that decision, I have seen what this is like, that is such a help to someone.
Yeah, I tell people that I don't know how you feel because this experience is unique to them, but I've been in your shoes and I know what helped my family, and I'd like to share that experience with them. It's never a pressure situation. I share honest and accurate information about donation with families that are in the situation that they need to make that decision. And again, it's not a pressure situation. I tell them that it can be a very positive thing for their family, that just knowing their loved one gave the gift of life to someone else, to many people, and the impact that that can have in their grief process, the pride that they feel in their loved one for sharing that gift of life can really be a very positive thing out of a tragedy that's happened to them.
And you've been there,
Absolutely.
so you know.
I'm kind of the other side of the coin.
Okay.
I lost a friend who had been on the waiting list
Okay.
for almost 9 years, and she passed away because the organ didn't become available. And it wasn't a natural feeling to me. I didn't understand why, because people do, there are tragedies, unfortunately, that happen every day. I could be killed on an accident going home today. I would want to share, and I raised my children to share. My mother raised me to share. I assume everyone wants to share, so why did
your
she
friend-
die?
Right. Right.
Who didn't do their job? And is the real job doing what we're doing right now, just
educate.
talking and sharing and asking questions and getting the right answers?
I think most people, if you ask them, if you had the opportunity to save someone's life, would you? And most people say absolutely yes. I certainly would. If you saw someone that was drowning, wouldn't you try to help save them? Absolutely. This to me is so much easier. You have an opportunity to save many lives. Why wouldn't you say yes? There's no reason not to.
Well, and kind of even taking it one step further, the example, if you were drowning or if you saw somebody that needed CPR, the answer probably would be, if I knew how to do it.
Exactly.
Right.
This is something you don't need to know how to do anything, because the opportunity isn't presented until death is already declared. So why wouldn't I want to share? You don't have to know how to do anything. You
Right.
just have to
You
be
just
willing.
have to say yes.
Yes.
I think fear, fear and not understanding makes people, not just with organ donation, but with many things. Fear
Absolutely.
prevents people
Absolutely.
from doing something that they would do if they understood.
Absolutely.
And many times the fear even begins with asking the question to find out what the truth is.
Right.
Right.
You know, are they going to let me, if I sign my donor card, my driver's license, are they going to let me die?
Right.
Well, no, because organ donation isn't a possibility until after death is declared.
Well, that's what we're going to talk about in this next segment. We're going to take a short break, and we're going to leave you in this break with the websites and phone numbers, the local numbers, and the 1-800 number for CODA if you want more information, and some websites that will provide you the information that if you want to go back after this show and look up some more, then you will have that opportunity. And we're going to talk about some of the statistics and some of those tough questions where maybe some of that fear stems from. So stay with us. We'll be right back. Welcome back. Again, the topic of this edition of Healthy Living is organ donation. And I'd like to reintroduce my guest, Vanessa Dallas, who is a registered nurse, and you work at the Kentucky Organ Affiliates here in Paducah.
Yes.
And Charlotte Wong, you are with Kentucky Organ Affiliates but you're from Lexington.
Yes.
You made a special trip down here. We appreciate it. I want to start with some of the statistics that I received, got from the website that you gave me. In the open, I said over 89,000 Americans are registered and waiting for organs on the Organ Sharing Network waiting list. And 600 of those are in Kentucky. But you said that there are even more now.
That changes every single day. New people are added to the waiting list, so those numbers change every day, but unfortunately they actually go up. I think the newest statistic, Charlotte, is there's more than 90,000 men, women, and children here in the United States that are in need of a life-saving gift of organ donation. And here in Kentucky at our local transplant centers, that number is up to over 650.
Yes, ma'am.
And it was you said not even a year since it had been updated.
Less than a year.
Less than a year.
So it changes so rapidly.
Yes.
And that's why it is so important to do shows like this and to do what you do, Charlotte, and educate people about the importance of becoming an organ donor. It says a name is added to the waiting list every 14 minutes. And I sat and I thought about that, and I thought, every 14 minutes. I have my favorite show I like to watch on TV, and it's, it has to fit in its hour slot, 58 minutes, roughly. And I thought, in the time that I sit and eat my popcorn or eat my snack and drink, 4 people or more have been added to the waiting list.
Absolutely.
And are in need of the gift of life. And when you stop and think about it, in 1 hour, 4 people are waiting. And I tried to think what that must be like to, like you said, they're waiting in the hospital. And
Or
they're
even waiting at home.
waiting at home, waiting in the hospital, and the clock is ticking.
And
for them.
the other part to that is there are doctors and nurses who are waiting to save those lives. We
Yes.
have skilled surgeons and doctors. We have wonderful nurses and caregivers who have this wonderful ability to save those lives.
With the right tools.
Yeah. And how frustrated those doctors and nurses must be to know that they can save those patients on the waiting list. It all depends on someone else understanding what donation is about.
And it says here, every 9 to 11 people die each day due to the lack of a donated organ. I mean, that seems like such a large number to me. I just can't even almost fathom that. 9 to 11 people will die each day.
Right.
And
Those family members are losing a loved one, and the opportunity is there for people to donate as long as they have that information and can make that decision and know that it's going to help someone else. It's going to help many people. We could eliminate that 7 to 9 people a day.
That's right.
Well, it's something that just struck me. It's a tragedy when someone is killed in a car accident or dies, but it does happen. The double tragedy is that more people, die because they weren't an organ donor. So it's adds insult to injury.
Yes.
Certainly.
And that
Yes.
and that is so sad to me that what I try to tell my children, because we've talked about that I wanted to be an organ donor. What do I need them for? I have made my preparation for my life after this one.
Right.
What do I need those organs for after I'm gone? And for my children, that's hard for them to talk about. My daughter doesn't understand. Of course, she doesn't want anything bad to happen. But to make that conversation with her that I know what I want to do, and so that she won't have to worry about it,
And
about
I think
feeling that.
this is taking it one step further. I think this generation in your age group and your children's age group, we're used to turning on the basketball games, the NCAA playoff games, and usually one of the first commercials we see is a funeral home. This is taking it one step further. If we're now in a generation and a time that we're used to talking about making funeral arrangements, pre-made arrangements, this is that last step that needs to be discussed and understood today.
Not tomorrow when the situation.
Absolutely.
Right.
Absolutely.
Make the
Understanding it-
decision before you have to make the decision.
Yes.
I've had that conversation with my family. I know what their wishes are. They know what my wishes are. And it's much easier me being the one that talks to families in these circumstances, I can tell you it's much easier for families that have already had this discussion and had these decisions made. It's much easier for them during that whole process.
And you know, how often does a family have a discussion about doing something? Whether it's a teenager with a curfew or a young child who wants to get their ears pierced, it isn't always a decision that we would want to make in our own lives or that you would want someone else to make. But the fact that it's been discussed, it's been acknowledged, and those wishes can be followed is what's important.
There's power in making that decision. There's so
Yes.
many times in particularly a crisis situation at a hospital where we're rushing around and making those final decisions. There's power in being able to take that control back and saying, this is what we want to do. So again, important to have this decided before we get in that situation. And we have wonderful opportunities with the education that Charlotte provides for the Kentucky Organ Donor Affiliates across the state, the Trust for Life organization helping us in the education process across the state. We have opportunities now to hear this message, and it just takes a few minutes to think about it and to share that decision with someone that you love and will be there making decisions for you.
And I think another thing to keep in mind in making the decision is that what-if situation. My husband is Asian, and in his culture they didn't talk about these decisions. When I started working for CODA, and I said to him, you know, I know how you feel, but what if it was our son that needed the transplant? Would you talk about it then? Would you want people to understand? And what if it was your mother that needs the transplant? Because any day it could be any one of those people.
And I say to people, you don't know how you're going to feel about a situation until you're there sometimes, until you are there in the midst of it. You don't really know how you're going to feel.
Right.
And when you say, you know, you don't pressure people when you give that talk. As a person who is devastated and hasn't had that discussion with my family, I might feel differently. I might not understand why you're approaching me with this information. And it might make me very uncomfortable and maybe even a little angry because I don't understand.
And that's part of the education process, because a lot of people are not aware that when brain death is declared in a hospital, we have to discuss it with the family. That's a procedure in place in every one of our hospitals. When brain death is declared, the family has to discuss organ and tissue donation.
And they have the right to say yes or deny.
They have a right to make that decision for themselves.
That's right.
And is it right or wrong either way?
No.
There's no right or wrong answer, but something that's very powerful to me is knowing that this family has been given the information that they need to make that decision. By not asking or not providing that opportunity, we've made a decision. We've said no for them, and I don't want to make a medical decision for someone else. They need to be given the right information to make that decision. Yes or no. There's no right answer to that question, but donation can be a very positive experience for that family, and families need to know they have that opportunity.
And many times, you know, in a crisis situation like that, families are waiting for a miracle. They're waiting.
They're praying
What
for
if?
a miracle.
And what they
are.
don't realize is that after death has been declared, they're holding a miracle in their hand.
Absolutely.
They have the opportunity to perform a miracle in someone else's life.
But for those people, you know, playing devil's advocate here, I might be thinking they might come back. You know, there are people who've been in a coma for years. People have said they're never going to make it, and they do. And if I do that, that's final.
That's a very common misconception, and one that I would love the opportunity to clarify today. There is a very distinct difference between brain death and coma. In a coma situation, certainly people have been in coma states for years and have had some improvement. Brain death is death, just like your heart stopping, and once they've determined that heart's not going to beat again, that is what we call cardiac death. That is death. Brain death is the same thing. Brain death is the death of brain tissue, and there is absolutely no recovery from that. It is an irreversible situation.
So they would be in a vegetative state forever.
No. In a brain death situation,
They're not in a vegetative state.
death
They're
is death.
dead.
Death is
Death
death.
is death.
Okay, see,
Coma-
so even you telling me this, I still don't
certainly.
get it.
And through media, we have heard a lot about persistent vegetative states. That is a coma situation. That is coma. But death is death, no matter if it's determined by your heart stopping and it can't function ever again, or your brain stopping and it never being able to function again. Again, that's the unique situation in which someone has the fabulous opportunity to give the gift of life to someone else. But there is a very clear distinction and a very clear set of circumstances and tests that are performed to determine that it is a brain death situation. 2 physicians are required to do those tests here in the state of Kentucky, and both physicians have to agree that the patient meets all of the testing standards to determine brain death. So it's not anything that's taken lightly, but it is something that is very different and completely not associated with coma. Death is death, whether it's your heart or your brain not functioning.
A lot of times in a school situation, when I speak with either to younger children, even high school students, I kind of equate it to a flower growing, but it's kind of reversed. Your brain is what controls, what sends the messages to your heart to beat, to your lungs to breathe, and your kidneys to do their jobs. With a flower, it's those roots in the ground that are controlling, getting the nutrients and the water up to the flower to grow. If you pick that flower off the stem and then find out that you needed that flower for next week for your best friend's wedding bouquet, is there a way that you can tape that stem back together or glue and be able to get that nutrients out of the ground to sustain life to that blossom for another week?
No.
Well, the answer is no. And it's the reverse with your brain. Once your brain is no longer receiving that flow of oxygen and blood, that brain stem dies. And so it's not capable, there's no way.
So it's not capable of telling your heart to beat anymore. It's
That's
not capable
exactly
of telling
right.
any of your other organs to function
That's
either.
exactly right.
Right. The person that you knew and the person that was there in a brain death situation is no longer there. That is not anything that can be reversed. There's not anything that can be done in that situation. And while a tragedy, those things do happen, unfortunately. Every single day things like that happen. It's only at that unique point that someone can give that gift of life to someone else, and will provide that opportunity for that family.
For the organs.
For the organs, certainly.
And the tissue, though, it's
The
different.
tissues can follow that, but a tissue situation, again, is after what everyone's typical idea of what death is. After the heart has stopped, you're no longer breathing.
Okay.
That's when tissue donation is possible.
My father died in 2002. He had a heart attack in the hospital and he died. Now, he would not have been a candidate for organ donation at that time, is that right?
Certainly. Right.
But he could have been a candidate for tissue donation.
Absolutely.
And as sad as that is to me now that my father is gone, it is even more sad to me that I did not realize that I could have given all of those things to someone else and saved someone else from
Pain
and suffering
absolutely.
at the same type
And
of
just
fate.
the mere donation of the corneas and giving somebody else the chance to regain their sight and see a child or a grandchild or to visualize what their wife or their husband's face looks like. That gift.
The gift that I wish that I could still have with my father, and I can't, but someone else can.
That's right.
With their dad or their brother or sister or whatever it is.
That's right.
No one approached me. If that situation happened with, say, my mother, would I have to go and approach someone? No one approached me because it wasn't the unique situation you talked about.
Right. Even with tissue donation, if in our local hospitals, in any death situation, whether it's a brain death situation or a cardiac death situation, and again, the different types of donation that follow those, our organization is contacted and we help determine what that patient may be suitable to donate and give to someone else. And then we work closely with hospital staff in approaching the family with what options they have for donation and seeking consent for that.
But if it doesn't happen, because that didn't happen with me, but it was so fast, it wasn't a prolonged thing, it happened so quickly,
We look to the next of kin first. That's the person that we.
I mean,
we
would I have
speak
needed to call you because nobody called? I didn't get contacted. That's what I was saying.
Right.
If I had known, I could have called you,
Certainly.
or the hospital. I could have said to some of the hospital staff, I wanted to see if my father might be
Absolutely
eligible, and then they would have gone the steps
Right.
to make sure that
our
happened.
800 number is up and
Okay.
available 24 hours a day, 7 days a week.
Okay.
Just for, even if you're not in that situation and you have a question, that's certainly what we're there for. But certainly if that's something that you think of, you can call.
We have about 5 minutes left before we bring on the two guests who have been a donor family and received an organ. Some of the questions: if I sign the back of my driver's license, is that enough?
No.
No, not at all.
Talk about it.
Talk about it. It's not enough. So if I sign the back of my driver's license and I haven't talked about it with my family, could my husband override it? Could my husband say, no, I don't want that to happen?
There is a law here in the state of Kentucky that says if you have indicated your wish to be an organ donor by signing your driver's license and having it appropriately witnessed, that's a legal document, and your family cannot go against those wishes.
Okay.
But it's important to let your family know so that they're aware. And also with the new and upcoming donor registry, we are so
Yes.
excited because that'll be an easy access system where we can share that information with the family that says, I just don't know, we didn't talk about it. If they've signed up for that registry, we can share them that they have made that decision already.
And I also real quickly want to say that in that situation, let's say you sign your license, you sign the donor registry and your children object. We do have staff who will sit down in that situation and talk with them. We don't say, okay, we've got 5 minutes.
Certainly, we have
We
time.
ask, what are your hesitations? Tell us about your mom. Would your mom have shared, if someone needed a meal, would she have helped with food? And generally, that family will come around to say, you know what, this is a good thing.
Okay. What about some of the questions of the fear that my loved one's body will be disfigured or look bad if they donate organs?
Someone can donate everything that's possible, all organs and tissues, and still have an open casket funeral. That's important to a lot of families. The act of donation in itself does not disfigure anyone, and it's not noticeable to anyone at that open casket funeral. That's a fear of many people,
Right.
and I'm glad to be able to assure them that they can still go through the normal funeral process that they had planned.
And once again, the doctors are not going to let you go,
Certainly
so
not.
to speak,
No.
because you're going to be an organ donor. They have a responsibility to save your life at
lives.
all costs.
Every effort is made to save a life, and it's only after death has been declared that donation becomes an option.
Okay.
So that's certainly something that folks need to know.
And can donor families and recipient families alike meet the other people that they have helped?
Yes, and many times they do. Recipients are encouraged to write a thank you note, and all it has to say is thank you. And that is forwarded on through our aftercare department, and conversely, donor families may call us a couple weeks later and say, I'd like to know, how are the recipients doing? And that is another part of the Kentucky Organ Donor Affiliates that we do help with that exchange and many times facilitate those families to meet each other.
Okay, touch real quickly. After the organ donation has happened, there is probably a bereavement process. There are programs available nationally and locally to help donor families with that process. Did you just touch that briefly too?
We do have an aftercare program at CODA that we follow those families after the point of donation and provide them with information about support groups and information to help them in the grieving process. And then one thing that I think, and I know in talking with some of the volunteers in our area, something that really helps them is the ability then to volunteer for CODA and spread the message about how donation has impacted their lives and helped them. And they usually do that through our Second Chance organization.
Besides Second Chance, which incorporates recipients, donor family members, and just general community members who are interested in spreading awareness and supporting each other, the other very strong group, and we're very, very proud of our Donor Family Council. We have a Kentucky Donor Family Council that meets and offers workshops that offer support to donor families. And will help a family go through that bereavement.
All right, and there's also help for recipient families as well.
Second chance.
Second chance, because they, like you said, they need that as well as the donor families too.
And many times the caregivers for the recipients also are looking for support. And so second chance groups offer that support all the way around.
Well, thank you so much. I really appreciate all the information you've given me. It's really actually enlightened me. I did all this research and you still helped me really understand more about it. Thank you so much for joining us, and
Thank you
we'll
for having us.
see you maybe some other time on our
Great.
show and in your education programs. Stay with us. We're going to have two guests in the next segment, a liver recipient and a donor member from a family that had to donate organs. So we really want you to stay with us. They have just a wonderful perspective that you need to hear about organ donation. So please stay with us. Thank you for staying with us on Healthy Living. I'm your host, Tammy Thompson, and we are talking about organ donation, the importance of making your wishes known about wanting to be an organ donor, and talking with your family and letting them know that you want your wishes to be honored if the time should arise. And I have two guests with me now who are going to offer a different perspective than in the first segment. I have with me Linda Wallace, who is a recent liver recipient. Thank you, Linda, for joining me. And I also have with me Christina Gooch, and you are the sister of an organ donor. Thank you both for coming. I really appreciate it. We'll start with you, Christina. Tell me a little bit about what brought you here to talk about organ donation.
Well, my sister was one of the 3 girls that was killed at Heath High School. So in the process of going through all that, we were able to donate her organs because they did determine that she was brain dead, and we were actually able to donate all of her major organs. And when they approached us about donating the organs, we had discussed it as a family beforehand, and my parents already knew ahead of time that my sister was very big on wanting to donate her organs. So my parents said, take everything that you can, and we wanted to be able to help every person that was possible through it.
So your sister may have been one of those donors that helped up to 50 people.
Yeah, I never heard the exact number, but I know we just told them to take all the major organs and anything else that they could to be able to help someone else.
How important was it for you and your family to have had that discussion before the time came?
It was very important. When my mom was approached, my dad was out of town when it happened. She knew exactly how she was going to answer the doctor. She didn't even have to think twice about it. As soon as the doctor told her that they found that she was brain dead, she said, go ahead and start the process. We had discussed it as a family, and she knew exactly how my sister felt on it.
That's wonderful. Have you also made that same choice and decision?
I have. Everyone that I know, I talked to them about making the decision and making sure that the family's aware of it, because it made the process so much easier.
Let's go to you for just a second, Linda. You are a recent liver recipient. Tell me what your life was like before. Have you always been sick? Let me ask you that. That you always, or did you get sick and need the liver? How did that happen?
I was diagnosed in 1990 with primary biliary cirrhosis of the liver. It's a autoimmune system disease. And at that time, it was just showing up in my labs and in some of my biopsy and some other tests that they ran. But as time went on, I began to have a lot of fatigue. And, you know, it was hard to stay awake as the years went on. That was, you know, 15, 16 years ago. But towards the end, I was having to sleep a lot. and I was nauseous, and I didn't have any energy as far as walking very far. I had mental confusion because of toxicity from my liver not processing the toxins
So did
in my
you know
body.
at this time what was happening?
Yes, I did, and I was seeing a liver specialist, and he had prepared me all the way since 1990 that someday I would have to have a liver transplant. So I was well prepared, and he talked to me frequently throughout the years about it. That was a big help there. But, you know, I finally did receive one in this year.
This year.
Mhm.
So what, you talked about being fatigued and being tired, and so it just started out with maybe your liver enzymes being elevated at a high level, and then it progressed from there?
Well, it's a slow progressive disease is what it is, and so it started out where they were not that high, but they began to get a lot higher. Bilirubin, which causes jaundice and yellowing of the skin and the eyes. That became a lot worse towards the last few years. And I just didn't have the energy to do much of anything. You know, I had no desire really to work or to, you know, participate in a lot of activities in the evening because I would be so drained after just, you know, a day at work.
So it was almost 16 years before you got your liver. What was that day like when you found out that you were going to get a new chance?
Well, they told me that I was at the top of the waiting list for an O blood type liver. They said that the chances were I would get a call very soon because the holiday was coming up. And so, you know, I wasn't thinking about it particularly that day. It's because I've been waiting for a year for, you know, on the transplant list.
So you were only on the transplant list for a year?
Approximately.
Okay.
And, you know, so you know, after being packed for so long, I was already packed and ready to go for a year. And even with the change of the season, we had to change out our clothes and everything to be prepared. But that day, I had gone to sleep about 6 o'clock at night. By that time, I had quit work, and but still, you know, fatigued all the time. And I went to bed about 6 o'clock at night, and I got the call at 10 till 11 at night. And she said that they had a liver. And of course, you know, everything that I had planned for, all my lists that I had made, and all the people I wanted to call, and all the things I wanted to do, it just sort of went out the window, you know. But I did have most everything packed, except for a few things that I needed in the house at the time. And I got those in the car and went to my, there was a friend of mine who had agreed to be my support person. And without a support person, they will not do a liver transplant.
Really, I didn't know
And
that.
so this was somebody that was available and could be there with me at any time. And so I drove to Paducah. I was living in Mayfield at the time, and I drove to Paducah and got her. She drove me to the hospital in Nashville. And we got there about 2 o'clock in the morning. And they
Were
just
you
prepared
excited?
me.
Were you
Oh, yes.
scared? Were you? How did you feel?
Well, I was wanting her to hurry up. You know, I just wanted to get there. And of course, we had like 2.5 or 3 hours. They asked me how long it would take me to get there, and I said 2.5 or 3 hours. We had no idea that after we got there, we would have to wait till the next day to go into surgery. But the liver wasn't ready yet, and they hadn't inspected it and approved it. You know, they always have.
So they call you even before that to get you on the move and kind
Right,
of
to
where
make
you
sure
need to
that I
be.
get in, and as well as the rest of the team, because some of the team comes from, you know, quite a ways too.
The doctors and the nurses.
I don't know who all, but anyway, there was 2 surgeons at the surgery, but it was very exciting. It was
Right.
very exciting, and in fact, it was the most wonderful time of my life. I just,
Well, you know what it reminds me of, that you were just talking about. I was packed and I was ready to go, and I changed out my clothes because it was different. It reminds me of what you do when you're going to have a baby.
yes.
That's what you do. You pack your bags. You're going to have a new life coming into your family, into your world, and so you pack and you get ready for it. And that's kind of what this donor family gave to you.
Exactly.
It gave you. You were the new baby. You were going to have the new life. And it's families like yours, Christina, that give people like Linda that newness of life. And it is such an amazing gift, and I really admire you and your family for making that decision to do that. Let me just ask you again, your sister was able, through that tragedy, to help many people to have that gift that Linda received. With that knowledge, with the choice that you made, how does that make you feel? How does that make you and your family feel?
It makes me feel really good to know that there's several people that are out there that are still alive because of the decision we were able to make, and it really helped us during the grieving process to know, we lost a member of our family, but there's several other families out there that still have someone in their family that they would have lost if they hadn't received the transplant, and it's really a blessing to our family to, while we were going through our hard times, to know, there's people that are able to rejoice and go out to the park with their kids and be able to enjoy each day of their life because of what had happened.
To have the feeling that Linda had and still has today.
Oh, yes.
I mean, I can see by the look on your face, it hasn't changed. It hasn't changed, even though, when did you receive the liver?
It was July 5th. They called me on the 4th of July.
Well, you look wonderful.
Thank you.
July 5th, and I would imagine that if it's July 5th, 2010, you will still feel the same way. Do you think you'll still feel the same?
Oh, absolutely.
That it
Yeah.
won't ever change? Let me ask you this, Christina. Do you want to meet the family of the families that your sister helped? Or have you met the families?
We've had the opportunity to meet the gentleman that received both of her lungs, and also the lady who received one of her kidneys. And the lady who received one of her kidneys has become a very close friend of our family's. She has a little girl, the sweetest little girl in the world, and her family are actually at my wedding a few years ago when I got married, and we've stayed in contact with them, and it's really been a blessing. We've heard from a couple of the other families, we've received letters, and it's just a blessing to be able to hear how much what we did was able to help their lives.
So in the sense, your sister still gives. She gave to the families that gave them the gift of life, but in turn, they give you something back to still be a part of that, and you still have a closeness that way.
Very much so, especially with the lady that received my sister's kidney, because we've been able to become such good friends with her. You can almost see part of my sister in her, with her personality. It just seems so much like my sister. So It's really weird how you can able to see kind of part of my sister coming through her.
Now see, I've heard that. I've seen on TV shows where they say, I received the heart or I received the lungs and my personality changed. And I thought, I wonder if that's true, that I feel differently, that I like a part of someone is with me and I carry that person with me. Is that true, Linda?
I can't pinpoint any particular thing. My person that was my support person tells me I'm a lot more impatient. But I really don't know. I've heard that for people that receive hearts, that there is definitely a difference for many of them.
A change.
But
have you met the family or wanted to meet the family?
I do want to meet them. I haven't met them. In Tennessee, they make you wait a year before you can actually meet the families face to face.
Okay.
So, you can contact them, and I have a letter prepared to send to them, but they want you to wait so many months before you send that letter, and just to give the family a time to grieve, as...
Is that part of you talked about how your doctor helped prepare you, and being on the waiting list for the organ donation was preparing you.
Mm-hmm.
Is all of that part of your preparation from the very beginning? They prepare you for all of the feelings that you will have from the beginning all the way through and even after. to help
Well, there's
prepare?
not, I wouldn't say everything. There's always something that's left out. I mean, you know,
Right.
they don't think of it. Of course, every
Everybody's
experience is
different.
different.
Right.
So,
But they do prepare you, and they do let you know what's going to happen, and they do provide you with an opportunity to ask the questions that you need to ask. And-
there is a lot of preparation on the part of the nurse case managers and the staff at the transplant center. And they, you know, because I'm going to see a hepatologist there before, you know, a couple of years before the transplant. So,
So are you on the anti-rejection medications,
yes, I am.
and you'll be that forever, right?
Well,
Or
what they
you have
will
to-
do is gradually take me off of some of them, and eventually, hopefully, they'll only have me on one, and for the rest of my life. But at present, I'm still on 4 different ones, and then some others that for side effects and
Okay.
that kind of thing.
Well, like I said, you look great. You really
Thank
do look
you.
great.
Thank you.
And very happy.
I'm
I would say.
blessed.
Blessed. I would say that's wonderful. If you had, we have just a few minutes left, if you had one thought that you could leave with the audience about organ donation, what would it be? What would you want to say to those who are watching about organ donation?
I just think it's very important that everyone discuss with their family what their choice is and how they feel about it. So if the time comes and their family is in the point where they have to make the decision, that they know exactly how the person feels, because that's one less thing that you have to go through. Because when you lose a loved one, it's a lot of emotions are involved that you don't expect are going to be involved, and knowing one answer to a question of many that are put in front of you helps you out a whole lot.
And well, taking that decision away from you helps you. Does it help you in the grieving process? Because you didn't have to make that decision.
I think for me and my family it did. It was something that we knew my sister wanted to do, and my sister was the type of person that always wanted to help everyone out, and this is her last final thing of being able to help people out.
And she did.
Yeah.
Thank you. What would be the final thought that you would like to leave with our audience?
Well, of course, you know, everyone needs to sign the back of their driver's license, you know, to be an organ donor. But the key is having the family follow through with those wishes, because without the family's participation, it's, you know, it just may not happen at all. And there are so many lives that can be changed and touched. So, and so much good that can come from it.
Well, I want to thank you both for joining me. I really appreciate you coming. I wanted to leave with a thought from the website that was mentioned at each break, which is www.kyorgandonor.org. And I read the following quote from Reg and Maggie Green, who donated the organs of their 7-year-old son, Nicholas, who was killed by robbers while on vacation in Italy. And they said, "By a simple decision, a bereaved family can either save other families from the devastation they themselves are going through, or condemn them to a lifetime of sorrow. Knowing that, I often wonder how any other decision is possible." A simple decision? Hardly. But a decision that can change lives more than any other decision? Absolutely. From this program, I hope you got 3 things. I hope you got your questions answered, and maybe some of your fears were set aside, and that you really understand what organ donation is and really have a better grasp of what it really means. I hope that you realize the true need for people to become organ donors, to save lives. And I hope you remember how important it is that if you have made the decision to be an organ donor, that you make that decision known. You sign a donor card, you sign your driver's license, but you talk with your family and you get them on board with your choice that you have made, so that when the time comes, they will all automatically know what to do and your wishes will be honored. I really appreciate you joining me. If you have any questions or comments and show ideas, please call me at 270-534-3215 or email me at tammy.thompson@kctcs.edu. Thank you for joining me. I'll see you next time on Healthy Living.